is very necessary to understand well the cloud of unknowing and to establish the Christian tradition behind centering prayer. I was a tiny bit surprised and maybe a little bit dismayed when we had a group meeting at Snowmass a few months ago, about 20 teachers of centering prayer, and I asked them how many used the cloud of unknowing when they taught. Only about half of them did. And I had a priest friend who made a retreat, a 5-day retreat on centering prayer at my recommendation, and when he finished and I saw him a few months later, I asked him some questions about the cloud, and he said, well, what's that? So now, apparently, it is being taught. Centering prayer, contemplative prayer, according to the cloud, is being taught without the cloud. Well, now, if it's being done, it can be done. But I recommend strongly, and perhaps will be my emphasis this morning, that when you teach contemplative prayer, you have the cloud. I really think it should be taught from the cloud of unknowing. Remember, it was a few years ago when Cardinal Ratzinger came out with his admonition concerning problem in relationship with Eastern approaches and techniques to meditation. Many people in the contemplative outreach movement were, I think, unduly disturbed by it. I thought it was a marvelous warning. I'm not too sure he understands what contemplative prayer is, but nonetheless, on a theoretical level, I thought it was worthwhile. The weekend that came out, I had been asked to give a contemplative prayer retreat to a group of 15 people at the United Church of Christ in Denver. And some of these people were friends of mine, and one of them asked me if I would do this because he said, we meet each week, 15 of us, for a 40-minute meditation period, and every one of us has learned meditation from a different source. Some of them learned it through Tibetan insight meditations, others through transcendental meditation, still others through Zen. And what they wanted was a common Christian basis for their meditation. We went through the contemplative prayer according to the cloud, and when I got back to Snowmass a few days later, Father Thomas gave me a copy of Cardinal Ratzinger's letter. And I read it, and I said, you know, if you had been at my workshop this weekend, you could have duplicated Cardinal Ratzinger's letter from everything I told those people. Because I gave all the warnings he gave, and all the cautions and all the distinctions. And so therefore, naturally, I thought he did a marvelous job. But the thing I want to stress is, as I recall, the only thing that he recommends positively in that book is the cloud of unknowing. So when you're coming from the cloud, and particularly today when we, people who teach contemplative prayer, are coming across from some criticism from some fundamentalist Catholic sources, and accusations, for example, of it being New Age, Eastern meditations and so forth. When you're coming from the tradition of the cloud, you're coming from a 14th century Catholic tradition that is datable very easily and obviously to the 6th century Catholic tradition, and of course even before that. So when you're coming from that source, you're beyond criticism in terms of orthodoxy and in terms of our authentic tradition. And so that's why I like to emphasize that. In order to use the cloud, of course, you have to know the cloud, and you should know it well. I've read the cloud, I would say, certainly 150 times, the most recent time being yesterday. In airports, I read the book from cover to cover. And it's constantly offering me new insights, new understandings, and so I think it's extremely important. My interest in the cloud came really, is very practical, and I see it as a manual of prayer. 2 years ago, when I was still in Israel, a professor of comparative religion at the Hebrew University came on retreat as a Jewish professor, and he comes every year for a 10-day retreat at the monastery. And the abbot told me that he was coming, who he was, and that he was doing research in the cloud of unknowing, so I was very interested, and I went to see him. And we talked about it, but we were talking on different levels entirely. He was interested in the manuscript tradition. He was interested in the glosses and the margins, and where some translator may have taken in an element from some 7th century John of Sisopopolis or something like that. And I wanted to talk about it as, look, this is a method of praying. You sit down and you do it. And he had no interest in that whatsoever. So we really never quite got together. So my own experience of contemplative prayer really followed along traditional and predictable lines. It was traditional and predictable, and I'm sure Carl would back me up on this. But in the seminary, we were, as a matter of fact, in the Dawson Seminary, we were really taught contemplative prayer is not for you. We will tell you something about it on a theoretical basis because maybe you might be in a parish that has a convent of poor Clare nuns or something like that. And once in a while, they might have a contemplative. So you get 1/2 a credit, 1 class a week for half a semester in your deacon year on contemplation. And that was when I, sallied forth into the priesthood to teach and save the world with that kind of a background. And it wasn't until 6-7 years later, as when I had my conversion and became a monk, that I learned contemplative prayer. But I learned it again going through Lectio, going through meditation, going through Oratio, and finally into contemplative prayer. And with not a great deal of help from the novice master or my spiritual director, as a matter of fact. Negative help in the sense that when I told them where I was and what I was doing, they would say, all right, but no positive instruction, which I think was unfortunate. And after a year or so, I ran across a copy of The Cloud of Unknowing in a dusty corner of the library in Middle English. And I read it and was fascinated by it because I found that this was a magnificent expression, a very accurate and clear expression of what my experiences have been. And so I became quite enamored of the cloud. Well, anyway, the cloud, as you know, is an expression of apophatic theology. Apophatic